Well, good morning. My name is Mallory. I am the councilwoman for Prescott Valley. And I'm here today with the Chief of Police, Bryan, Jarrell, and the Chief of the Central Arizona Fire Authority, Chief Freitag. And we're here today to talk about safety in our community, safety with our police, our fire, and also safety among each other. And how can we work together as a whole to make sure that when we have something happen, that we're going to be prepared. So today, that is the conversation we're going to have, and we are a community. And with that being said, as a community, when something does happen, we do need to work together. It can't just be one organization, one group. It takes all of us to pull it together. So good morning, gentlemen. I thank you very much for being here today.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mary.
And so I'd like, we'll start with you, Chief Jarrell. What are your thoughts about some of the safety and how we could go forward?
Well, first and foremost, as you know, the police department works very diligently every day to keep the community safe. And we do that with our limited resources. People need to remember that we have anywhere from 5 to 9 police officers per shift covering 40 square miles, serving a population of between 45 and 50,000 people. And so every day we obviously face our challenges, but in times of natural disaster or emergency such as a wildland fire or flooding, that really challenges our resources at that point. And so then we have to work cooperatively with all of our regional partners, being the Sheriff's Department and certainly the Central Arizona Fire and Medical Authority. And I think we have proven that we can do that time and time again. Actually, over the past couple of years, we've faced some natural disasters, 2 wildland fires, and then certainly some flooding that we've all had to work together, and we do so, I think, exceptionally well.
Yes, I think so too. I think under some of the circumstances that we've dealt with, that we've done very good, you know. And when you mention about the population of 45 to 50,000, you know, let's add in on the weekend, that increases, right?
Yes.
Chief, I know you know, I hear you are very much, your organization is really busy. I know that you got a lot of calls, the population, it grows, the weekends grow. What about your input on some of this?
Your area is even bigger.
Yeah, so we have limited resources, but we do cover 254 square miles. We have a population of about 88,000 that we're responsible for. And we cover the entirety of the town of Prescott Valley. And as the area grows, our call volume continues to increase, and yet our resource availability is not growing to meet the demand, which are things that we are currently working on each budget year, trying to figure out how to balance tax rate, net assessed valuations, need for resources, and keeping up just in the market in the fire department. So we've been very busy. We are fortunate in this area that we have a partnership with the Prescott National Forest and the Department of Forestry and Fire Management at the state level that is unparalleled anywhere in the state or the western United States. And so those resources complement our resources in some of the larger wildland fire situations that we've dealt with, the Goodwin fire, the Prescott Valley fire, the one that happened in January, and then the Viewpoint fire. All of those resources come together, which is a fantastic thing to see. But we're still challenged, and as the area grows, we're going to see more challenges. Our reliability rating at the 3 stations that are the core of Prescott Valley are down, hovering around the 70% mark. National standard says when you get to the 70% mark, you really need to think about what you're going to do to address the issues. And that's problematic for us. We have 3 fire stations within 1.5 miles of each other. We can't shoehorn another one in. So what we're looking at, not this fiscal year, but the following fiscal years, can we put something in place like a 40-hour engine, which works 40 hours a week and just moves around during peak hours to backfill so that we've got the resources that we need. But it's a challenge. as we move forward, and it's something that we contend with every day.
Now, I'd like to touch base because we do have a lot of people that have moved here over the last few years. So we talk about limited resources. So I want the community to understand that Prescott Valley itself does not have a Prescott Valley property tax. Now, a lot of times we get confused about that because you do have a property tax, and it's from the county. It's not from Prescott Valley. Prescott Valley's resources are on sales tax. That's basically where we have our revenue from. Now, we run our police department off of the budget of Prescott Valley, which Prescott Valley, again, is a sales tax revenue. But our fire department, Chief, you are part of our property tax, correct?
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
all of our funding comes from property tax.
Okay. And so I bring this up to the community because you see, a lot of times people would like more. And more firemen, more stations, more police officers requires more revenue. And that's something the community as a whole, not the fire department or the police, they tell us what their needs are. But we as a community need to support the first responders. And we need to be knowledgeable about the revenues and how they're coming forward and what we as a community of people can do to help the first responders. Because it is not just their responsibility to keep this community safe. It is all of our responsibility to help each other at a disaster. And when our first responders come and start to talk about maybe we need to add another engine, maybe the chief of police needs to add some more police officers. When they come to the community and talk to us about these things, let us have a better open ear to the fact that we're here to help them. And everything costs money. It's not where you run a town and it doesn't have some type of expense to it. And when we have a disaster or we start to fall into bad weather, you know, we have to bring on extra resources. And that's something I think that all of us could take a look at. And I think too, as I talk with you gentlemen, I think that it would be good for a lot of the community to take an interest. And I know, Chief, are you doing that police academy still? Are you still doing
Citizens
that?
Police Academy, yes.
Yes,
Yes, we
okay.
are. And the Youth Academy.
Okay, those are great things, I think, as citizens of the community that you should look into. Reach out to the police department, find out about these two things that they hold for us to get educated, because education is going to be the key to a lot of things. And a lot of, you get frustrated, and you don't need to be frustrated if you can get the knowledge that you understand how everything works. And our fire department, you know, Chief, I know you do a Ops 101 as well.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes, we do.
I think that's a fabulous program, you know.
We do a Fire Ops 101. It's every April. We ask community leaders. We invite them to come in and see what it's like to be a firefighter for a day, so to speak. We talk to them about what we do on a regular basis, what our responsibilities are, and then we put them in the gear so they understand going into a fire. They understand cutting up a car for auto extrication. They understand search and rescue. They understand the medical side of it. We put them through a cardiac arrest scenario. And the intent is so that they see and understand firsthand the resources that are necessary to do our job. What we do is very resource intensive. And we just saw that recently in Maine with a fire that went 3 alarms, and one of their firefighters, a captain, died in the fire. And they had every resource they could throw at it, trying to work the fire and effect a rescue at the same time, and the resources were just very limited in that area, and that created some problems for them. In our area, we cover 300 square miles with the city of Prescott, between the city of Prescott and Central Arizona Fire and Medical. We have 15 fire engines to cover that, and about 125,000 residents between the two of us. Coming from out of state in an area that was populated similar to this, except we weren't an island isolated onto ourselves, there were a lot more resources, and we just don't have them. And our backup's coming from an hour away in the Verde Valley. So either we provide resources or we're just short.
Okay. And, you know, a lot of our community, we have a lot of, you know, like Granville has HOAs, Pronghorn has HOAs, Quailwood. All of these community plans have these HOA organizations. Sometimes I think, and I live in Granville, so sometimes I think as an HOA, maybe the community in that area could work together. For instance, we had this snowstorm recently, and we were utilizing all the resources that we could possibly get a hold of. And I understand there was even if you wanted to hire out anybody else, Chief, I think it was you telling me that there just wasn't any availability
Correct.
for that. So I think as communities that we have out there, that it would be good for the HOAs to maybe hold meetings, bring the people together. What can we do within our community development to assist if there is some type of emergency going on, whether it's a fire, whether it's a snowstorm or a flood, those kind of things. Because again, I really want to stress that we have an evacuation that I know both of you are working on for the general area. But at the same time, everything takes priority. And so we all need to be able to maintain ourselves, because the first things are going to be the priorities. Like for instance, a snowstorm. We were clearing the main roads. We weren't getting into neighborhoods. And because the snowstorm was very strong, you'd clear the main road, and before you knew it, it was already full. So those are things, and I'd like to get your input on that, is, you know, how do we, or how would it be that the community could maybe organize themselves a little better, in the sense of knowing that you can't get to them right away because you've got these priorities and we have limited resources?
So let me just say that, as in any emergency situation, under risk management rules, you don't do things that you're not used to doing.
Right.
So for example, most people in this area are not used to driving in 18 inches of snow.
Right.
And so it's really important that that people listen to the news, and they listen to what the emergency responders are asking them to do. And second, it's important that they use some common sense. So I think we learned a lesson on New Year's, when we had, I think it was 26 accidents in one afternoon because people wanted to go out into the snow. In this last snowstorm, we didn't really have anything going on because people stayed home. They recognized the problem, and they thought, well, you know, I'm not used to this, I'm not going to be able to drive in this. They stayed home. So the burden for us was a lot better.
Good, that's good. And Chief, how was it for you?
You know, we staffed up for this, so there was a cost associated. We hired plow companies in advance to keep the ramps and our stations cleared so that our engines could get in and out, and our resources. I think it's important, and Chief Jarrell and I both come back from the Midwest to here, where we have a number of snowstorms every year. So we understand the dynamic of main roads first, and your neighborhood will get plowed when there's time and resources available, but
Right.
the main routes have to remain clear. So from that standpoint, I think there's an educational component that we need to get out to the communities. And that's whether it's a snowstorm, it's a wildland incident. Those are significant natural, some disasters, some not necessarily disaster, but emergency situation. And the more we can educate folks as to what their responsibilities are during these events, I think the better off we will all be. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter whether you're in the Phoenix metropolitan area or you're up here. In a large-scale event, there are simply not enough resources, and individuals have to be accountable for themselves, their safety, their properties, and their families.
Right.
And that's something that, you know, I've preached throughout my career in teaching disaster preparedness is you have to be ready. For example, we used to teach if there was a tornado, here's how you turn your neighbor's gas meter off if there's a problem, because the gas company may not be able to get here. We may not be able to get there immediately. It's a prioritization response. So we really need to spend some time educating folks on what they can do to plan and protect themselves.
Well, I think that brings up a good point too, which is be mindful of your neighbors. So,
Yes,
for example, in this
I
last
agree.
snowstorm, I saw a lot of people very diligently out there trying to get their driveways cleared and keep them cleared. And then the snowplows came through and buried the ends of everybody's driveway. And there's a lot of elderly people, and they can't go out and shovel that kind of heavy snow.
Right.
So be mindful of your neighbors and remember their limitations or potential limitations and help everybody out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's, like I was saying, you know, you're working on that evacuation and that safety plan. I know that you've been working diligently with that for the area at large. But again, we aren't just 70 people. We just aren't a department of 70 police officers and maybe 200 firemen. We are a community of 50,000. And you have families too. And that's something I like to try to stress to the people in this community. You know, we worry about our families, but I need you to remember that our first responders have families too. And they're not with their families because they're out here helping us. So that's why we need to work together as a whole and keep mindful, not just about our own personal needs, but how can we contribute to help the situation that we're dealing with at the moment.
And Mary, I think it's important to understand, even with the fire department, our personnel have responsibilities to their job and they have responsibilities to their family.
Yes.
And what we did, for example, in the Goodwin fire is while our operations personnel were busy dealing with the Goodwin fire, our administrative personnel were assigned to follow up on all of the families of our personnel that were on duty. And we opened up a center to bring those folks in and ensure their safety. So that way our people in the field could focus on what they needed to focus on because they knew their families were protected.
Right.
And that's the same thing in any situation when you're looking at disaster preparedness. It's what have you done to prepare? Where are your important documents? Where are your medication list? Where are your medications? Where's a go box, something that you can grab, throw in your trunk and go? We all have clothes in our closet that could go in a go box that don't necessarily need to be in the closet.
Right.
There's food stores, water that you can throw into your trunk. Cheetos, you don't know if they're stale or not. They start that way. You can't tell. You know, that's something you need to think about. What are some food stores you can have with you? As far as evacuation plans, because I know that comes up a lot, I think we need to understand that Prescott Valley is still growing.
Right.
And road systems are not where they would be if the town was finished growing.
Right.
And so it's still a process. And this is why under the Life Safety Code, we do require 2 means of ingress and egress out of every neighborhood development so that there's not one way in and one way out that gets blocked. That becomes problematic as we go north because there's not east-west connecting routes. However, I know the town has just implemented a new program that we supported, the Red Gate program.
Right.
They've given the mayor the ability to sign a proclamation so they can open those across private property. I think the county's working in the same vein. So I think as long as we continue to work together, we're innovative, we're progressive in the way that we approach the issue, we can work through some of those problems. We're not going to make everybody happy, but folks need to understand that when you choose to live somewhere, you should take a look at what's my ingress, egress, how do I get out in case of an emergency. It's no different than what we recommend when someone goes out to dinner at night or to a movie theater. That front entrance you came in is not your only exit, and you really need to take a look around the building and see what's a secondary means of egress, what's my secondary exit out of here. And that's something only you can do in those situations. Recommend the same thing in your home. Where's my secondary means of exit? From my neighborhood, from my house, whatever it is. You need to start planning in advance. If this, then this.
Right. And you know, we do live in what we call a rural area.
Yes.
And that is not anything like a metropolitan area. We do not have public transportation. We don't have sidewalks everywhere, you know, and all of those things, public transportation, sidewalks, all these other things that you may have moved from, these things that we don't have, if you want to implement them, that is another need of revenue, which would have to be absolutely totally different, you know. The other thing I'd like to touch on too is the fact that if you think about moving to an area, every city and town has what we call a general plan. It's the vision of where the town that you're thinking of is going. And I think it's important that you look at that general plan, because if you're moving into an area, I'm here to tell you that all that open land is for sale. The state will sell it.
Yeah.
Right? It's all for sale. There's no guarantees that that's going to stay an open area. And I think it's important that you take a look at the area that you're moving to. You understand that you have this for now, but there is a vision going forward that may change in 20 years. It helps ease the growing pains, I think, you know, and we are growing, and I will tell you we are continuing to grow, and of course as we do that, we will continue to reevaluate our police department and our fire departments.
And Prescott Valley, the way it's growing, it's a very vibrant community with a lot of planned growth, very careful growth. How do we approach it? I know the town does a lot in water studies. Coming from where I came from, the study into water was, how do we get rid of some of this? Here it's, how do we maintain for the future? And you have some staff here that does remarkable work.
Yes,
in those studies and planning moving forward. So I think there has to be an understanding of where the town's going. I think there has to be some education, and a lot of it, it's not just the town educating, it's people taking the time to do some of the research and ask the questions. You have town council meetings just like we have board meetings, and those are good places to get information and to ask questions. And I think we're all open to talking with folks in the public, and I know Chief Jarrell and I are out quite a bit in the community. I know you are. So if you have a question, approach us, and we're happy to sit down and visit with you and talk. And Coffee with a Cop is a big hit.
Yes, that's
Lots
wonderful.
of opportunities to visit with Bryan and his staff.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think I saw, aren't you going to be at the Cracker Barrel?
Today, is it 4:30 to 6? I think it is tonight.
Well, that's wonderful. So,
we try to change it up a little bit, not only just mornings, but we've tried some lunchtime Coffee with a Cop, and then we're trying some in the evening to reach as many people as we possibly can, because some people can't make it in the morning or at lunch, but hopefully they can come out in the evening and see us.
now do you put that out in, I know you put it out in the town news, but do you put it out on, you put it out on Facebook? You probably, do you put in the newspapers, or how do you, okay.
We do put out a press release to all of our media outlets, and then we put it on our department Facebook, this town's Facebook, Twitter, all of those
All
different
those
platforms.
things.
We try to get them all out.
And Chief, let's just reflect upon your meetings. When are your meetings? Where are they usually located at? And we all know the public's invited, so we'll put that information out so they could actually come and sit at your meetings and get an idea of the fire department and what are the needs, and listen to the information.
Our meetings are the fourth Monday of every month, and they start at 4 o'clock and go to some undetermined time after that, usually till 6 or 7, because we do, being a fire authority, we have 3 meetings.
Okay.
And we're looking at some adjustments in that, but we meet, it shifts between Prescott Valley and Chino Valley, because we are large and cover those 2 very important communities. We make sure that we every other month we're in one of them, so residents have access to the board and to the board meeting. So you can look at our website, get specific times, any changes. Tonight, for example, I have to miss Coffee with a Cop because we have a special board meeting for Central Yavapai Fire District to choose a new board member for a vacancy. So
Oh, okay.
we're going to be running that meeting this evening, starting at 4 o'clock, and that will be in Prescott Valley at our administrative headquarters.
Okay. And those are great places for the community to actually get some one-on-one conversations going, you know, and I think that's important to do. And I think that, I know that you guys go out to the communities like Pronghorn, Granville, you go out, you'll actually meet up. I've seen the flyers come out that says, you know, the chief of police will be meeting tonight at the Vista Point Clubhouse, and I've seen you out there as well.
Yeah, so for example, May 3rd, we're going to be having our 3rd annual Latino Town Hall
Okay.
at St. Michael's, I believe it is, and so we're in the planning stages of that right now. So we do want to connect with our community. We want
Right.
to hear from them. It's easy for people to go on to social media and make their little comments and little snide remarks about certain things, but if you really have a question or a concern, we're approachable. Come out and talk to us. We'd be more than happy to discuss any issues that you have.
And earlier you mentioned about a list, having a, what are some of the things that people should have to be prepared with. Do you have those papers, those lists already made up? Do you pass them out? I mean, or do people, should they make their own?
We have links on our website that will lead people to FEMA websites that provide lists of things that they should think about.
Okay.
At the same time, you know, we can provide that if you sit down and talk to us. I have a fairly significant background in some of that planning, and so I can help folks work through what are some things they could or should set aside and plan.
Okay.
Thanks for having me today and giving us the opportunity to talk about this.
Well, I so appreciate spending some time with you gentlemen. Appreciate everything that you do for our community. And I hope that the community at large will join in on the group effort to keep us all abreast to what happens when we have some bad weather or fires.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is Mary Mallory, and again I want to thank you for joining us today, and please be involved in your community. Be a part of the solution. We need your help. We need you to be there. We want you to be there. Have a great day, and thank you again for joining us.